Look at this, I can't believe my eyes. This was just sitting next to my bin. Free stuff? Yoink! Hi everyone, glad to have you back. Let's dive into details, because there is a lot to cover. I was determined to finish the foundation, and to do that, we had to start with laying the sewer pipes. So that's exactly where we began. Remember these pipes from the previous episode? If not, I don't blame you. One is for the sewer, and the other is for water. Now it's time to extend them, and that means digging begins. When we originally designed the house, we made sure it reflected our preferences while also focusing on minimizing material usage and keeping things simple. In this case, all the sewer connections are placed along the wall, so all what we need to do is dig a pretty straightforward line. Very easy. This was a 2-day job and it marked a very important milestone for me. At first, I was thinking about waiting for my dad to come and help me and guide me through it, just to make sure I do everything properly. But then I realized I couldn't keep putting things on hold. He lives 800 kilometers away, and it's just not realistic to expect him to be here every time I need a hand. I had a bit of fear about whether I do it correctly, but eventually I made up my mind to take charge. I decided to keep things in my own hands and just call him for advice when I needed it. I kept reminding myself I can do this. It's not rocket science, it's more like construction. Just get the levels right and don't forget which end of the shovel does the digging. The first day was pretty chill. I dug the hole for the sewer line and spent most of the time planning things out, double checking the numbers, pipe sizes, how many pieces I'd need, and so on. I was just about to settle in and finalize the plan, enjoying a quiet moment alone, when something unexpected happened. I started hearing some loud, strange sounds coming from the distance, and not long after, I spotted a yellow tractor moving through the trees. It was Tomek, one of the local guys from the village, coming to cut the grass on our land. I had already trimmed the fenced-in area, but the rest of the 6,000 square meter had been left white for years. The grass and trees had grown well over our heads, and it was definitely time to clear things up a bit. It was incredibly satisfying to watch. Those blades sliced through the overgrown grass and weeds like hot knives through butter. How amazing it would be to have a tractor like that of my own one day. But until then, I'm really glad to have someone like Tomek around. I was genuinely impressed and very happy with how it all turned out, and the land finally felt manageable again. Once Tomek left, I got back to working on the sewer system, and that's when something rather unfortunate happened. As I mentioned in a previous episode, the water pipe had been installed by my dad and father-in-law, and I wasn't there during the process. Well, now I know they had poured a bit of concrete around the pipe just to keep it securely in place, but at the time I assumed it was just a larger rock embedded in the foundation, so naturally I reached for the pickaxe. I just had one solid hit, and well, the result spoke for itself. Loud and clear. Luckily, the pipe was long enough that I could simply cut off the damaged section and just keep going. I lost a couple of hours, sure, but in the end, having those protective sleeves in the foundation really paid off. Turns out that was a smart move after all. After cutting off the damaged part, I packed up my things and I left my beloved land, at least until the next morning. My first stop was a local store that sells PVC pipes. We picked the closest one and we got lucky. This shop quickly became my favorite, and I always returned because the staff were friendly, helpful, and knowledgeable. just what I needed, since I didn't have much experience that time. One minute I was inside the store, the next I was out in the trenches, putting the pipes together and trying to figure it out the right slope for the system. So this is how you do it, or at least how I did it. Is it the perfect way? No idea, but it works, for now. We needed two connections in the kitchen, one for the sink and one for the dishwasher. It's always smart to have multiple connections because sinks tend to get blocked more often, especially with kids around. In total, there were 3 connections in the bathroom, one for the shower, one for the sink and one for the toilet. When it comes to pipe size, it really matters. We use 2 sizes. The main pipe which handles the heavy stuff is 11 cm and the kitchen pipes are 4 cm. Connecting these pipes is just like playing with Lego. Simple. The most important tip is to use 2 45-degree elbows instead of a single 90-degree bend. This helps prevent blockage much better. Another key point is to maintain a 2% slope throughout the system so the sewage can flow out of your house without sitting in the pipes. When I slid the pipes together, I made sure all the ends were clean. No dirt, no debris inside, because anything left in there can cause blockage down the line. Sometimes I had to scoop out extra dirt from the hole and I double checked every single washer at each connection, just to make sure they were in the right place and completely free of sand. Some of the pipes are really tough to fit together, so I used a bit of liquid soap to help. Apparently, that's the old school trick. Cutting the pipes were the easy part. I used a small grinder and trimmed the ends to keep everything nice and smooth. Once we had about half of the system assembled, we carefully took it out and started checking the level to make sure we maintain the 2% slope. This is definitely a time-consuming job, especially if it's your first time, but it's super important to take your time here, because eventually tons of concrete will be poured right over these pipes. Hopefully, we will never have to mess with this system again, fingers crossed. Luckily, I had some solid teamwork. My kids helped out and made the whole process way more fun. Little hands, big help.
Here you go, boss.
Thank you, boss.
Once the whole system was done, this is how it looked, and we were ready for the final test before covering the pipes. We poured a cup of water into one end and watched how fast it came out on the other side, and checked if the amount was the same. It worked perfectly. We did a great job after all. After that, it was time to cover the pipes with soil and compact it well. I had to be gentle while compacting, because pressing too hard could have cracked the pipes. Everything around the pipes had to be done by hand. Well, actually by foot. We used our legs to gently press the soil down without damaging anything around. Out of nowhere, something truly amazing happened, and I even managed to pull out my phone and catch it on camera. A moose showed up not too far from me, with her calf running right across my land. She even stopped for a moment, almost like she was giving me a little salute. It was the first time I ever seen a wild moose up close like that. Truly unforgettable. What was supposed to be a 2-day job turned into 3, because we decided to take a little break and enjoy a walk in the forest instead of working. Totally worth it. I came back in the next morning to wrap things up anyways. I filled the trench back in with sand, one layer at a time, layer by layer, until the surface was nice and flat again. Just a few pipe tops were visible. Once those were covered, the sewer system was officially done. In about 2 weeks, I'll be back with more updates as we continue the build. If you're enjoying the journey, consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it with your friends. That's the best way to support what we're doing here. Thanks for watching. Mark is out. Peace.